ecosystem, that essentially this is a problem of multiple cold start problems or catch-22 problems in this country. One very important problem, and this was actually quite, it is not very well appreciated, is that there's simply not good enough vehicles available. And once you have these vehicles available, you can do something about it. But if you don't have good enough vehicles available, what will anyone buy? Thankfully, in 2020 and 21, some good quality vehicles and two-wheelers and three-wheelers have hit the market. As a consequence, you can see the sentiment, consumer sentiment going up, and more vehicles are expected from larger companies like Mahindra and Tata. And I know Shankar is already working on it. So, and of course, on the bus side, JBM is a very, very big name. So I'm very confident that one important thing that is being solved and should be the first thing to always think about is good quality vehicles to be solved. Please understand, Indian ecosystem or the Indian customer is a very demanding customer. Our conditions are very demanding. We have road conditions which are very tough. We have load conditions which are very tough. We have we expect our vehicle to last very long. At the same time, we expect the vehicle to give us very good economies as we go up. As a consequence, anything that was built in a China market or Europe market or even US market is not likely to work out of the box in India, and which is why the first wave of EVs has misfired. The second important challenge is that this ecosystem is now becoming formed, but important challenge is because we don't have large enough vehicles being produced, we also don't have a very large and installed base of component manufacturers, all the way from ACC cells to battery assemblers, to motor controllers, to BMS, to all the other parts, software and hardware that this business will require. I think this is an important challenge. If you do not have great quality component manufacturing, obviously there is no chance you'll have a lot of good vehicles. But please understand, if you could build very good quality component manufacturers, you will probably start seeing very good quality vehicles also. So the important outcome of this slide, this particular thing would be that you should notice how each of these functions, each of these subsectors will impact everything else as well. For example, financing is also linked with the vehicles, number of vehicles. But if you have good quality financing, I'm arguing that you will have good quality charging and good penetration of charging infrastructure also available, because these are all interlinked to each other. And because this is very complicated this is complex, very dynamic, the decision tree that anyone imagines to do this, it becomes incredibly hard for people to really wrap their head around and solve for this problem. I'm sorry, okay. Bunch of companies we have studied, and we have, if you do get a chance to look at our EV primer, definitely look at these 6-7 slides. We have managed to do this and put together some conclusions. In the interest of time, I'm skipping these, but they will establish how it is useful to think about the future of this ecosystem put together. Unfortunately, this is a complex slide and it's very difficult to read, but yeah, I'm hoping you will be able to take value of this. We couldn't find a better way of presenting this data. The only one point that I want to, 2 points I'll leave you with. On the two-wheeler side, and I know that several people in the audience may be serving the two-wheeler market or are working as two-wheeler OEMs. I think that, and again, this is coming from outside the industry, so forgive me if I'm sounding like a novice or someone who doesn't understand it, but I believe that in two-wheeler and three-wheeler market in India, the incumbents and the larger companies probably do not have as much as an edge as the younger companies have starting today, because the vehicles that we are talking about are essentially very software intensive. They are also not products but services, and the brand and distribution does not automatically lend itself to your benefit, because the consumers clearly know an electric vehicle is different from a vehicle which is in internal combustion engine. Just our view, and I think we will be able to prove sooner or later that the largest sale will happen via startups and not via incumbents. We have a few views there. I'm just skipping some of those and just leaving you with this important aspect of battery life cycle. We think that is very important for us to start thinking about the entire life cycle of batteries. These all figures are available in our EV primer, if you can simply go and download. This is life cycle, has many different aspects. For example, sorry, I don't have pointer here, unfortunately, but you can see the yellow, the orange ones are recycled, so they come back into the use, and the green ones are the new EV manufacturing. A lot of good work has already happened in this ecosystem. We simply need to make sure that more and more good work happens as we go along. Yeah, that's all. I think one important challenge is about financing, and we have written something about that. Yeah, we have. I can go on, and please open your QR code scanners and take a click. Thank you.
So the report is pretty extensive, and I haven't read it. Obviously, I just got it. I'll go through it. But I'm sure there's a lot of insight there that we can learn from. Earlier, I was talking to one of my colleagues from iCreate, and they brought it to my attention that India missed out on a lot of opportunities. For example, when the telco transitioning was happening from 2G to 3G to 4G and all that, Wi-Fi transition was happening. All the equipment, all the operating systems, everything that India could afford was coming from China. And same thing happened to us basically in the IoT space. The OSs for those IoT devices were all Chinese. We are considered the software epicenter of the world. Why can't we be writing these layers? Why can't we be the owners of these libraries? Now, you don't want the operating systems that are going to control your battery management or is going to control your vehicle to come from China as well. So as entrepreneurs, put your thinking caps on. There's a great opportunity that lies there as well. That go ahead and create something, even if it is a very rudimentary kind of an OS, people will build on top of that, right? But at least aspire to say that I'm going to make something that is Indian, that's going to control, that's going to be the OS for these two-wheelers and three-wheelers. So the reason I'm dropping all these thoughts is when we go afterwards into debate and discussion, we can talk about these other things as well, which may or may not be covered by the speakers, right? Next up, we have Shubhankar. I think, I don't know whether you have a presentation or, yeah, so the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I keep getting asked in such EV programs as to what's the guy who's in a downstream petroleum marketing company doing in an EV program. But I keep saying that we are in the business of providing energy, and we are very clear that this phase of EV adoption is a very important phase in the transition journey. Just to give you some stats, 86% of our customers happen to be two-wheelers, and this is in the segment of personal mobility. So out of about 1.2 crore customers we get every day across our 20,000 gas stations, 86% of them are two-wheelers. So for I think for startups, this program couldn't have come at a better time, because that's the opportunity that you guys have actually to leverage and to figure out how would you actually accelerate this transition of this very, very price conscious, price sensitive, value seeking segment to move to adopting EVs. And actually that's where we come in, and we've clearly identified that if you put the consumer in the center at these times when there is a big transformation happening, you will find your answers there. You know, if you look at the customer and you put him in the middle of any problem, you will find your own answers. And we believe that there are three important facets of this transition which is playing out. One is there are three types of anxieties: range anxiety, discovery anxiety, and time anxiety. And if you are able to address these three anxieties, which actually play out more in the customer psyche, uh, you will actually have done a little bit of service to help him make a informed decision to move from conventional fuels to electric. Um, it's the classic case of whether the egg comes before the chicken or vice versa. And we believe that if you want to accelerate adoption, you have to create convenience for the consumer. Indian consumer is looking for convenience, and like some of my earlier speakers said, very discerning consumer, and that's what you have in India. If you do not provide him convenience more than what he thinks he needs, it's very difficult for him to make a shift, because everybody, the Indian consumer is very, very, very happy in his comfort zone. If you want to make him shift, you have to give him more than he really wants. So in that area, I think one of the crying needs today is to give him that infrastructure, to give him that peace of mind that he can take his vehicle and he can drive to wherever he wants to drive without having to worry, where do I get my next fill, and whether it is fuel or whether it is electric. And that network, unless you give him that particular network, you are not doing any good in trying to hasten the adoption of this new form of energy. So so in our case, we are setting up EV charging stations across all the major national highways in the country. We'll be setting up 7,000 fast charging stations in the next 18 to 24 months. And these are all highway fast charging corridors from connecting important towns and economic centers, primarily to give the consumer the confidence that here's your network, here's what will help you take a decision to shift from ICE to electric. When it comes to charging, I think the biggest challenge that we are all going to face, and we are talking about we're talking about close to 60% of, say, two-wheeler sales being electric by 2030, and about 40% of stock. Definitely, the current ways of charging through grid is not going to work. So the EV ecosystem, which we believe the startups can really build in India, is not going to be complete unless you look at upstream. Unless you take the entire package of generating the power and delivering the power. In India, we believe that we will still be incomplete because it's altogether a different country. If you go to the hinterland, power is not available. It's and the kind of the projections are that we need about 100 terawatt hour of electricity which is required for EVs by 2030, and no way that's going to happen unless we look at captive power generation through renewables. And I think that's a big piece which is missing in all the work that's happening in the EV space in the country. We are looking at technology, we are looking at battery chemistry, which is all very good, but unless you look at upstream, you look at actually the source of generating the power that's going to go into the vehicle, adoption is still going to be difficult, and it's going to be very expensive. I mean, you cannot. I don't think any DISCOM is going to continue subsidizing power to charge your vehicle after a certain point of time. So for that to happen, I think there's a lot of work which needs to happen in this space. Whether you want to have solar, whether you want to have better technology for energy storage, but we must look at a self-sustaining, because that's going to be sustainable power and not the kind of power that's getting generated today and going into your vehicles. So so unless there's a lot of work which is happening on that front, I think we'll be short of what we should be doing. Secondly, I think contrary to what's happening in the West, in India, we can't we can't depend on home charging forever, because that's not convenient for most of the Indian consumer. The Indian consumer would like to charge his vehicle just the way we charge our mobile, top up 10%, 15%, 20%. I mean, that's how it happens. And if you go to the hinterland, and if I look at from where I come from in the Northeast, I mean, we all share the vehicle. I mean, we all share the two-wheelers in the family. So somebody goes for a run, you charge 10, 15%, do your core, and you come back. So that is going to happen only when you have good fast charging available for two-wheelers, which is not there in India today. And although BIS has set up standards for two-wheelers, but I think there's a lot of work which needs to happen on that front. BIS standards say up to 7 kilowatt is something that you need to create for two-wheeler charging. A lot of work needs to happen because as of now, the OEMs, most of them are coming up with proprietary charging. So you will have problem if your charger is not interoperable. So that's one big area that we need to work on, because you need to provide convenience to the customer, the ability for him to go and charge at will, wherever he wants, without wasting time. So 5-10 minutes charging, top-up charging for a two-wheeler is very important. And I think there's a lot of work which startups can do on that front. I think those two are big challenges from our perspective. And I think the one big piece is that if we are going to create a sustainable ecosystem, it's very important to very important to look at every strata of the society, not just the metros or the tier 1 cities. You need to go to the villages, because ultimately that's where 50% of your two-wheelers are getting sold. And Indian mobility is all about two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And we need to go to the hinterland. We need to understand their buying habits, their behavior, their driving behavior. So that will give us a very, very good understanding to come up with very good, viable, and economically feasible solutions, both for the supplier as well as the consumer. Thank you.
So another thought for our entrepreneur friends that are here with us and online. It's very ambitious to say that I want 60 or 70% of my vehicles to be 100% electric by 2030. Let's face it, it is very ambitious. It may or may not happen, right? But it's always good to have a goal, especially in politics, right? It's like raise the bar and see how far somebody can jump. So it's good to have that. But as entrepreneurs, in adversity lies an opportunity, right? If there are laws that are being passed, it's going to happen. Somebody's going to pay, somebody's going to suffer, some will push, some will pull. Two things that are inevitable. Conversion. There are millions and millions of vehicles on the road today. They are not going away. They're not going to stop polluting. They're not going to stop consuming fuels. So how do you convert? So conversion is a huge strategy for somebody that wants to get into this space. And the second part is, we just heard challenges about infrastructure. So battery swap, that's not a concept that exists in EV anywhere in the world. Nobody looks at swapping batteries, right? But for India, that might be something that India might have to become an expert at, because that's where you get quick juice. If I can get a battery that gets me 20 kilometers, I swap it, I go another 20 kilometers, swap the battery out from there and go my own way. Not that I'll live that way, but I won't be drop dead, stopped in my journey to wherever I'm going, right? Just a bunch of thoughts to think about. Next, we have okay. I think next on the list we have is Dr. Prakash. So go ahead, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I come from a slightly different background than all the panelists here are from industry. I come from a research institution. I work on batteries. My last 15 years of research developments are on developing batteries for various applications and so on. When I think of innovation that India needs to drive the future electric mobility, few things comes to my mind, especially on batteries. So first one is safer and better batteries. Safety in Indian context is very, very important. Safety of the batteries. An Indian consumer may not be that careful in maintaining or monitoring the batteries and so on. Safety is one aspect. And better batteries, like, to have an higher energy density, cycle life, and all these aspects. And the second thing I think is of batteries for India specific needs. The batteries which are manufactured in Europe or America or from other countries may not be suitable for our specific requirements. Some of the challenges, like as Arpit mentioned, our consumer usage pattern can be different, and our geography can be different, our climate conditions can be different. So here batteries are in summer, the temperature can go up to 45 degrees and so on. So the batteries, when you are charging, they develop in heat. So there has to be a mechanism, or batteries which have a better thermal runaway. So these are all the developments which need to happen for India specific applications. And the third thing is sustainability. So when we talk about sustainability, if you see as so India's projection for 2030, something like 200 million two-wheelers and 40 million cars, and I think 4 million buses and so on. So if you see even two-wheeler segment alone, if you take each two-wheeler maybe 1 to 2.5 kilowatt hour or so, so that itself will account to something like a few hundreds of gigascales of battery requirement. So it's a huge number, and even a small percentage of these vehicles convert into EV also is a big demand, and India's requirement for batteries is really huge, several hundreds of gigascale. So that is the kind of requirement. So can we depend on the import of batteries? No, we cannot, because when you have such a huge requirement, we cannot depend on the import of batteries. So now it could also lead to a geopolitical issues. So you may not get the good quality batteries, and when there is a demand, sufficient demand may not be met. So all these issues may encounter. So when you think of manufacturing the batteries here in locally, then there are issues like none of these ecosystem exist for manufacturing. Like if somebody has to manufacture lithium batteries here, then even a smallest component has to be imported. So whole supply chain need to be created. So that is a big thing. So, and then we also need to look at the availability of critical raw materials. Like one of the raw material is lithium, cobalt, etc., nickel used in batteries. These metals are not that abundant in India. Lithium almost not there. So we need to depend on South American countries or other things, where again that we run into an issue. So there has to be a kind of, recycling can be a fantastic thing, because even when you produce some gigascales of batteries, then there would be that many gigascales will also be dumped and so on. So there should be a better way of, we should be able to recycle them and convert these materials into, again, the raw material input for battery manufacturing and so on. This is one way we can sustain, we can have the sustained growth on lithium batteries. So the other things are the chemistries, the materials which you use in lithium batteries, like, for India specific things, maybe we need to look at the chemistries where we have resources abundant in India. Maybe like high nickel and manganese rich based chemistries, not the cobalt one and so on. So these are the various approaches India should look into when to have the sustained lithium battery growth. And the fourth thing I think about it is post-lithium systems. Look, this could be a solution, because post-lithium system means other than the lithium batteries are batteries which have a much higher energy densities. Like for example, solid-state battery. Solid-state batteries, they will not have any explosion because there is no liquid electrolyte. Main thing in battery, all this explosion we see, it is not always that battery BMS system malfunctioning. Most of the time, even if the BMS malfunctions, the main explosion or the fire created at the electrode level, electrode electrolyte in the batteries. So this is something, what actually happens in the battery is when the temperature is, when you are charging the battery, the temperature can rise. So at a local level, not at the outer level where, your thermal management can, etc., and can take place, but at the internal level, there could be a rise in temperature. So when there is sometime, all these chemistries will have a thermal runaway from 150 to 200 degrees centigrade. By chance, the temperature inside this battery, if rises to 150 degrees centigrade, then there is an exothermic reaction happens with the electrolyte. That lead to a catastrophic triggering of fire explosion and so on. So can we have materials which have better thermal stability, or it could be a solid state batteries, or for high energy density, if you see lithium sulfur battery or metal air batteries. So this could be an attractive approach. We should look at it. However, these chemistries these technologies are still in the infancy state. So it may take a little while, maybe few more years to come back to commercial level and so on. But it required that India needs to work on such technologies, and India needs to, there is a big opportunity for Indian lithium battery manufacturing, hundreds of gigascale requirement of batteries. There is a huge opportunity for Indian industries. There need to be, Indian industries need to look at manufacturing of batteries and so on. So this is my conclusion.
Thank you so much. And I think a lot of people, whether that be in the entrepreneurial world or the political world, don't really see the global impact of what we're trying to achieve, right? I mean, what you're saying is huge. If the core if India wants to be battery independent and make its own batteries, absolutely they don't have the underlying raw material. There is going to be a dependency there. What are your geopolitical equations of where that raw material is? How are you going to get it? At what cost? Right? So, there's a lot of moving parts. Maybe, Arpit, one of the studies you guys can do, extending what you've done, maybe it's already there. What would it take from an ecosystem perspective to manufacture and support 1 lakh cars or 1 lakh scooters or 1 lakh bicycles? Just that, right? In true sense, saying you need this much of this, this much of this, this much of this, this much of this, and then let somebody extrapolate that to 60 million or 6 billion. And then very quickly come to realization, I don't have this, and I don't have this, and I can't get this, and maybe this is impossible. And maybe hybrid will start sounding like a lot sexier proposal than all electric, right? But that's what ecosystem players should do, is enlighten everyone. Facts are facts. They are non-negotiable. They're non-changeable, right? I think next we have is Ramchandran. He's in order.
Yeah, thank you, Parag. Good afternoon, everyone. Very interesting discussion. So Dr. Shankar and Mr. Manoj set the context. Arpit spoke about some specific challenges. So let me go a little deeper. So I'm from Infosys. I'm part of the thought leadership team. So electric vehicle is one area where we keep doing a lot of ongoing market research. Autonomous vehicle, we have gotten into some implementations also. So let me drill down and go a little deeper into the opportunities and challenges that the earlier speakers spoke about. I'll do a drill down. Let's look at the life cycle of a car. And from Infosys, I can say technology is a silver bullet to solve all these issues, right? But that's not what I wanted to say. But I'll talk about some areas where technology can help. So starting from the design of vehicles, right? So Arpit spoke about lack of not many good cars available. So the way I see it, having spoken to a lot of experts, right? Many car OEMs have been retrofitting their IC vehicles, but probably this is the time when we're going to see electrically native cars come out of design shops, right? No more retrofits. But that's not what I'm saying. But the opportunity there is, again, startups can play a big role here. There is an opportunity to customize vehicles, right? So each car can be made according to a specific client's requirements. And this can be done on a very large scale, but what is called mass customization, right? So product configurators could be a big opportunity given the simplicity of the configuration of electric vehicles. So I can choose a color of the car, each color seat can be of a different color. And it's not just for customer requirement. If you look at the way how Tesla managed the chip shortage, right? I don't think the chip shortage is going to go away anytime. We spoke about shortage of rare materials like lithium, but even chip shortage is going to be there. So Tesla managed it with a design for availability type of approach. So if I were to take this product configurator for mass customization to each customer requirement a little further, maybe OEMs can use it to check, okay, these are the chips available on hand. These are the car models for which I have orders. Can you do a mix and match so that these cars are delivered on time with a price limit, right? So design for availability, mass customization, all these things lead to a product configurator type of opportunity in the design stage of a vehicle. So now we have designed a vehicle. Now, how do we take it forward? How do you engage with customers? So that I spoke about mass customization. How do you do that? How do you engage with customers? So there again, I see an opportunity for technology. Digital channels will be increased more and more for client engagement. I think Maruti Suzuki claimed that out of 26 touch points, 21 of them are already digitized. You need to go to a dealer shop only to pick up your vehicle for service, those type of things, maybe for a test drive. So digital channel is one area from a technology perspective, which I see picking up a lot. Again, post-pandemic days where we may still continue to need some social distancing requirements. And again, from a technology perspective, metaverse could be a technology. I'm not jumping the gun, but there are data points. So Toyota and Nissan have recently launched their metaverse-based showrooms, digital showrooms, where you can go and play with the product configuration, decide the best configuration that you want. Maybe you can check the price of it. You can check the delivery date, because many companies today are moving towards a make-to-order type of business model. Ford is not able to make to stock anymore. I'm sure the same will happen in electric vehicles also. So digital channels, this could lead to a direct-to-customer business model. So Mr. Manoj spoke about evolving business models, innovative business models. So direct-to-customer could be one model. Tesla is already practicing it. Many dealers in US are already worried about it. But the way I look at it, for sale of new vehicles, it could be digital channels. But for aftermarket and after sales, the dealer network is still required. You may have to take your car for a service, whether it's an electric vehicle or an ICE engine vehicle. But electric vehicles are easier to sell through digital channels, a DTC, a direct-to-customer model. You have better connect with your end customers. That makes life easier for both the OEM and the customer. So now I've designed the car, I have sold it, a customer has placed an order, they have chosen the best configuration they want. Now I need to start making the car. So again, Arpit spoke about component manufacturers, right? So here one trend I see probably happening is what is called a marketplace, right? So a buyer and a seller meet in a market, but when a third party like an Amazon runs a marketplace, runs a market, it's called a marketplace. So I see this trend evolving in auto industry for component makers, especially for electric vehicles. As materials and parts and products get more and more commoditized, it could be a marketplace type of setup. And it's already happening. AutoDX is one initiative I can think of. It's an electronic exchange with which ACMA, Auto Component Manufacturers Association, has been trying to put together for electronic data interchange between OEMs and suppliers. Dr. Shankar and other auto experts will know very well about it. Infosys, Nandan recently launched our own marketplace in an event a few months back. That's more for our services, where we bundle hardware and services, hardware and software and services along with partners, and we sell it as a bundle package. For example, IoT needs hardware, software and services, whatever be the industry. And ONDC, some of you might have heard about it. Again, Nandan championed it. ONDC is Open Network Digital Commerce. Mr. Koshi is heading it. That's to help Amazon not become a monopoly, so that the mom and pop stores, everybody can participate in the e-commerce wave that is going on today. So marketplace could be a big trend that's happening. Again, something to note for startups. TVS Motors recently launched their marketplace. I think they call it e-mall. 100,000 parts are cataloged. They see it as a big opportunity for revenue in aftermarket space. So marketplace could be one way to plug the gaps in component supply. Again, lithium, is it going to help you solve it? Maybe not, but maybe it's going to become an open market. Maybe this is liberalization of the auto component industry. Anyone can ask, any supplier from anywhere in the world can supply these parts as long as they meet the specifications. So that's one more trend I see. The other one, talking about the price issue, high cost, all that, right? So one way where I see technology can help it is subscription-based models. So to Mr. Shubhankar's point on charging, so charging also can become charging as a service. Shell is one example I can think of, where they set up turnkey projects. It's not a capex for you. They set up the whole thing, and I can take up a franchise and operate it on a usage-based model. So coming back to vehicles, subscription-based model could be one big trend that's happening, which is very, very technology-enabled. So it addresses the price issue. As a customer, I don't need to pay upfront for the vehicle. I just sign a lease and I pay every month based on usage basis or on a flat basis. Dr. Shankar spoke about connectivity and software. That's going to help you to closely track usage of vehicle. Not just usage of vehicle, also the driving patterns. How safe am I as a driver? So Tesla has used this successfully to roll out driving usage-based insurance, right? So if I am a safe driver, my premium will be less. I don't do sudden braking. I don't go very close to objects. There is no collision avoidance. There are no near misses. So they use a 5-point score to come up with a number for each driver. So that number will determine how safe or how unsafe are you as a driver, and that will determine your insurance premium. So subscription-based models, again, Maruti has this concept, has this business model called Subscribe, which they rolled out in a few cities for a few models. So this pay-per-use type of business models could be one way which will address the price issue. To address the charging infrastructure issue, charging as a service could be one. Parag spoke about battery swapping, all those business models are there. So we can keep on talking about several ideas. But just to summarize quickly from a technology perspective, the big trends that I see are mass customization of electrically native vehicles. Product configurators could play a big role there. We can have a design for availability type of situation to manage critical material shortage. And then digital channels for client engagement, marketplace for efficient and transparent procurement transactions of parts and components, and subscription-based models for vehicle, for charging stations. So those are some of my points. So I'll hand it back to Parag. Happy to continue this discussion.
Thank you so much. And I think, yeah, technology is going to play a huge role, whether it is on the ancillary side or on the mainstream side. And larger companies should basically step up and kind of streamline products to support the industry. Anybody own an all-electric car? Anybody on the panel? Raise your hand. Anybody in the audience? No? Let me educate you guys and bring you up to speed. I own a Tesla all-electric as a company car, and I own a Porsche Taycan all-electric as a company car. I don't like driving either one of them because they don't serve my purpose, right? Even in the US, these cars don't serve my purpose. I'll tell you why. Environmental Protection Agency rates the Porsche Taycan as a 190-mile range vehicle. I have the largest battery, $200,000 car, 190 miles. ICE engine takes me 340 miles. When I plug it to my charger, I have a high-speed charger at home. When it's 100% charged, it shows me the range is 230. In the summer, that range drops from 230 to 180. The minute you turn your air conditioning on, you probably get 160 miles out of that. This is, you're talking about one of the best cars in the world out there. It doesn't get any better than this. Does it drive like a Porsche? It absolutely does. Right? When you start driving at 90 miles an hour, your range just dropped to 155. And now you are like, where's the closest charging station? I just don't want to deal with that. Right now, the industry is not ready for the consumer need. Not even in the US, not in Europe, and it won't be in India for a long time. Facts. Nobody can tell me otherwise. I own 2 cars, I drive them. I'm telling you what the material facts are. Right? So in India, you have to remember, heat is going to already take your output to a minimum. You don't have to worry about air conditioning in a 2-wheeler. You know what you do need to worry about? Yesterday in Baroda, I saw a scooty. This guy had added 2 more wheels to the scooty and made it a car out of it. He had a little shelter on top of it. He had a carrier in the back, and he had a gas cylinder in the back. He is driving, and he's got a dog in the front. Your battery, your torque better support that. Because these are aftermarket modifications that people are going to make to their vehicles. ICE doesn't care. ICE deals with it. Is your battery going to deal with it? Right? Anyways, just thought-provoking things. It's very nice to be on the positive horse, and then you come down to reality. But all these are things that India will have to deal with. and it will. But as an entrepreneur, in each one of these statements, there's an opportunity. You need to find how can you cater to that opportunity, right? Last, I think we have Sudhanshu. So he's remote. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Parag. Am I audible? Yes. Okay, great. So I think being the last panelist, I think our esteemed co-panelists have already shared. So I echo their statement to what has been said from my industry colleague, Mr. Shankar is here, and other panelists. But one point which I take what Parag was saying a little while earlier. I think for me, if I look at it right now, I think we are a victim of our expectation at this point of time. And why I say so is the fact that if you look at the West as well, okay, the green mobility, sustainability, we all been talking about it, but implementation on the ground is something what we need to be deliberating in all seriousness. India, we have seen a lot of impetus in the last 1.5 years, 2 years on EV mobility. We are looking at adoption of EV mobility from IC. Something which was done, IC has been there for multiple decades now. We want a replacement. So we are talking about two subjects here. One is the adoption of EV in the Indian consumer market and the consumer expectation. And second is India being a production hub for EV for the global market, right? So if I look at both the aspects, I think the roadmap is there, right? Roadmap has been led by the government, by the industry, by the startups, and startups are playing a very pivotal role in doing so. But are we bound by the expectation? Because the targets which we have set for ourselves sometimes seems unrealistic. It's good to have a goal, as Parag said before. But the fact is that if we are setting up the targets, do we have the requisite infrastructure? When I talk about not about the EV charging infrastructure, but as some of the co-panelists talked about, the power availability or the raw material for the battery, because you're talking about the quantum of conversion. One for the Indian consumer itself, and secondly, we are talking about production hub for the global demand. Now, if you see the landscape for IC vehicle, and especially for the two-wheelers and three-wheeler industry in particular, I think we have created a brand India, right? For the quality of product which we offer, for the reliability we offer, and we are the leaders and largest exporters of two-wheeler and three-wheeler to the world, right? And especially to the developing and underdeveloped economies in Africa, Southeast Asia, Indian subcontinent, so on and so forth. So what is required for us is to replicate that. Right? So simply put it, if we were able to create a landscape for IC, both from the production side and from the component and complete landscape for as a production hub, can we replicate that for EV? But the question is how soon? That is, I think, is the challenge what we need to address, and therefore I believe that we are probably victim of our own expectation. So I think we are moving in the right direction, but we need to take things as it comes and build on it, and where I think the industry and the startups together plays a very vital role, because with startups brings flexibility and with industry brings experience. And I think that's amalgamation of both the two and supported by the government bodies is what will lead us the path towards conversion and adoption of EV. So that is what I have to present here, but I'm sure a lot of detailed discussion has happened from the esteemed co-panelists, so I'll not dwell too much on that subject further, but I'm always open for any further discussions on the on any queries the forum has on the EV adoption.
Well, thank you so much for those insights. So a couple of other observations, and then we can open it up for the rest of the panel to kind of discuss and debate. Has anybody assessed whether there is a need right now? Are people saying that I want to dump my bicycle and get an electrical bike? Or is there somebody saying I want to give up my iScooty and get an electrical scooty? Or is regulation driving that? I think, Arpit, you want to take a shot?
So there are segments where the total cost of ownership is very clear. And it is natural that I haven't yet come across too many cases where people are replacing their vehicles with electric, but the replacement demand whenever the cycle gets over is definitely moving to electric in a big way in E3-wheelers and in commercial segment of two-wheelers. Like for example, a Zomato or Swiggy guy, because the total cost of ownership is dramatically better. In fact, it's almost 30-40% lower than other segments.
So maybe what the industry needs to do and what people like us need to do is kind of promote that, right? That 64,000 crore rupees is the fuel consumption of ICE vehicles. That from a geopolitical perspective, we have that dependence. We have that external dependence. Our government would like to claw back on some of that stuff. Gas is a commodity that goes up and down 100%. 100%. Electricity doesn't fluctuate like that, right? It has its curves, but it's not a 100% curve. So even from a national perspective, that's a debate that must be had. And it should be, population should be educated that this is for a collective good, that getting away from the dependence of oil and gas is huge. It's not an overnight thing. It's not going to happen, but you must embrace it. Environment aside, just overall cost and geopolitics, and that's a huge thing. Well, so, but there's other options, right? I mean, if you talk to Tulsi Tanti, he'll say that give me an opportunity and I'll use every whisk of wind that's blowing there and try to convert it to energy. So that's a different challenge, but that's a government issue, right? Because I can't generate electricity personally.
No, I agree. All that I was suggesting was that the real delta we should find out.
Yes.
That for charging the battery, how much power is produced, and corresponding how much imported coal is used vis-a-vis the gas that we use to operate that battery, operate that vehicle. That's what I was trying to say.
So, sir,
there will be data, I'm sure.
There is data. If you put from coal to kinetic energy in the vehicle, conversion is between 80 to 90%. From electricity to kinetic energy, 80 to 90%. From fuel to kinetic energy is not more than 30-40%. So if you put fuel into vehicle or electricity in the vehicle, electricity is far more efficient by default. Almost twice.
It's a factor of 2.
I understand, but it should be quantified. That will help.
True.
In rupees, it should be quantified.
So I want to ask the panelists that are remote, do you guys want to kind of opine on some of the stuff before we open up for questions and stuff? You've heard everybody, right? So do you guys, we still have time. We have quite a bit of time, maybe about 15-20 minutes. If not, then I'll pose questions to you guys individually. But do you guys have any thoughts on anything that has been said? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, Manoj here. I would like to, share a perspective. So far, we, only try to put forward our views around one industry. When I say one industry, means like the automotive e-mobility. But if we see in totality, this whole, thought leadership, it is basically a time of convergence. Okay, convergence of multiple industries to come out with the values for driving the e-mobility. Mr. Ramachandran talk about IT as a platform for the innovation, for the digital. So digital is the most fundamental stuff over here. You talk about telecom infrastructure is the another sport element over here in terms of creating that 5G for the applications to drive the automotive. Then the automotive itself as a framework to build the vehicle, not the traditional way of the mechanical way, how they can make more, in terms of material as a chemistry to adopt. And then in terms of the materials for the battery kind of a thing, in terms of how we focus on those areas. So as a India, what we need is to have that synergy among this whole multiple industry ecosystem And each industry has to create value proposition to make sure how well we integrate it under single umbrella to drive that experience for all of us. So this is how I personally believe, and when we talk about innovation, it is not just innovation for an e-mobility segment. Innovation across multiple industry who are part of this whole ecosystem development need to be integrated in such a fashion. Whatever they are doing, again, they are waiting from point of it is a demand and supply thing. They are waiting for something, demand come, we will do this value proposition or we will do this way. But time is how at CII or iCreate or all such kind of a platform, which are very, very useful to bring that integrated view, so that no corner should be left blank, and we should not give this for someone to think separately in an isolation. How we bring that innovation, and startups are the one, probably I believe, they see the thing from a very holistic point of view, rather than just as a kind of a one industry point of view, because they try to touch the basic ground level of problem. Then they see as an experience who all are the multiple stakeholders, and then as an innovation, how they can connect those dots. For me, innovation and startup mean this. So someone really need to connect those dots from all the aspect of various pattern, and then one need to draw how that bridging and who can lead that bridging, and then individual stakeholder from a particular industry leadership can continue support from their positioning point of view. So this is something I thought I must bring to the attention, so that we should not left out any single kind of a contribution from other industries, because India as a potential, like I came from a big telecom background, so we have shown to the world how the tower industry works. So we can create over here also multiple examples how the overall e-mobility framework works. When we have IT as a strength, we are number one. Telecom as a model, we have good experience. Now automotive, we are the largest exporter in that way, in multiple ways. Then we have good strength from a pupil as a perspective from a skill development program. So how I believe as a block diagram we need to integrate that. Thank you for taking time to listen all those views here.
Thank you. Shubhankar, I got a question for you. If we had to strategize and say, should this problem be tackled rural to urban or urban to rural? Like, I know you did say that we have to make sure that is available in the rural areas. But if you think about electricity, the people in the rural areas that have electricity are the gas pumps, right, on the highways, the 3G, 4G operators, because they need power to run their towers, and probably the railways. But outside of that, where else can this infrastructure be provided so that adaptation is higher? Because we all know if we don't make it easy, nobody's going to want to adapt to this change, right? So what should the strategy be? I mean,
yeah, actually, Parag, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's really a dilemma as of today. But if you just go by maths, I think everything about energy, which at least we have piloted and has reasonably worked, has always been bottoms up. Because we believe that India, in terms of overall use of energy, it's actually happening in the hinterland. It's actually happening in tehsils and in the basically in the agriculture dominated markets. That's where the energy consumption is the highest. And today we see and Arpit touched upon that in terms of TCO. I think that's where the TCO will have the maximum impact, because you have price conscious, value conscious segments staying there, and secondly, the overall driving distance in the hinterland is much higher than you have in the urban markets. So from a purely from a value perspective, I think if we are able to sell there, if we are able to have a solution which makes sense to that segment, I think we are done. In any case, I said 50%, but I was just checking. 75% of the two-wheeler sales happens in that market. So that's where the adoption also should happen the fastest.
So that provides a lot of tech opportunities, right? Because if it's metro, then I don't even need really an app that tells me I go from this gas station to that gas station, charging infrastructure will be there. But the fact that if remote is a strategy, then I think intelligence from applications, know-how, protocols, APIs, chargers talking to batteries, talking to whatever, all that becomes a bigger necessity here in India than probably anywhere else. So it may not even be available to you to import from China because it's not China's problem, right? They're not probably going to just build it for India. It's for the global market, they'll give it to you. But it looks like there's a lot of potential inherently for India to build its own solutions to cater to its own problems, which are very different. From battery perspective, how, Dr. Prakash, are batteries swappable in these things? Because I've not heard of that, right? Is there somewhere where there's like a quick solution where I don't worry about charge, I just push and I move on? I mean, is that even possible? I don't know. I'm not a battery expert. I drive a Tesla. My Tesla, I know I can't do that. There's way too many batteries in there, right? If I wanted to get 200 miles out of that, this probably I would need a crane to pull those batteries out and swap them out. But in a Scooty, in a Luna, in a Chetak, I mean, is that an option?
Personally, I don't advocate battery swapping, but I know there were companies like Professor Jinjinwala from IIT Madras. Because batteries, like, even mechanically, when you connect it, there could be, that all that electrical loose connection, etc. could, and also it is not safe for the batteries to be handled that way. So you subject it to a lot of mechanical impact, and then you dump it. So these all, for me, it looks to be impractical. But there are companies there are a few startup companies in IIT Madras Tech Park who actually demonstrate battery swapping. So Professor Jinjinwala had, he handled few companies where the battery swapping for two-wheelers and even four-wheelers have been demonstrated.
Parag, can I pitch in here? Sudhanshu here.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the swapping stations are available. Okay, it's in the nascent stages. So if I have to talk from my company perspective, we were the first one to launch three-wheeler with a swappable solution in the Tri-City in Chandigarh, Panchkula, right? So we have a tie-up with Sun Mobility and then the Geo BPs. They are developing the infrastructure, swapping battery infrastructure. In fact, as we speak, there is also a draft policy from the Government of India on the swapping program. So if as Arpit was talking about the TCO, right? So current adoption in the three-wheeler is the maximum, because if I look at, even if I go in the last month, Vahan data for the sellout in India, in fact, in three-wheeler, EV has surpassed IC, right? So it's more than 56% already, right? So in three-wheeler space, because the TCO is there. But what about, it is because of the current FAME 2 subsidy. But the larger question is, the post-2 FAME 2 subsidy, where is the parity coming in with the IC vehicle? Be the acquisition cost and be the running cost. So the swapping solution is definitely available. There are startups and even the bigger conglomerates like GeoBP are coming into this space of developing infrastructure. In fact, bigger conglomerates have also vouched also to develop infrastructure for swapping infrastructure. The fact is, the cost of running for those vehicles with the swapping station is higher than a fixed battery solution at this point of time, which needs to come down for EV adoption to happen faster and to be sustainable post FAME 2 scenario.
And then you obviously have payment platforms and all those technologies to be built, right? I mean, it's like somehow you're so there's a lot of opportunities in the space.
And I think, and that is where when the subscription model which was discussed earlier for the fixed battery, that would be then the next best option besides the swappable solution.
Yeah. Anybody else have any value inputs before we go to Q&A? Yes, Anupam?
I had a concern around charging stations and battery swapping, and that was a simply economical one. If I am the owner of a charging station, either on a highway or inside the city, I would want to make a few hundred rupees per day profit from it. So therefore, after I've taken away the cost of technology and figured out how many vehicles I can charge in a day, the cost at which I have to sell that electricity crosses 25-30 rupees per unit, whereas the domestic tariff is 7-8 rupees a unit. So that is something that I can't get my head around, that if somebody has to sell electricity as a business, as a charging station, they have to sell it at 30 rupees a kilowatt hour. And then I as a user would say, ki, yaar, ghar mein to 7 rupees ka milta hai, yahan 30 rupees kyun de? So how does that resolve? When is it going, and what is going to be the solution?
So at this point, the pricing is also taking into consideration utilization factor. Naturally, the charging stations available do not expect a lot of utilization. As a consequence, they have no choice but to, for their ROI calculations, price it higher. But assuming at some point of time, charging is available everywhere, as a consequence, enough vehicles are available, the delta between domestic tariff and the tariff available at the charging point is going to come down maybe to 15 rupees. It will never become 7, 8, 10. But then you will factor in the fact that there is a convenience of charging it, there is fast charging, etc. available, and probably you will work it out. But you're right, at this point of time, it doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, for some segments like fleet, there is no choice but to use it. But yeah, I think it is very prohibitive for consumers.
You see, some very positive interventions would be needed from government. If government is convinced that this is a right thing to do, from environment point of view, from saving foreign exchange point of view, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
probably government can consider various measures. One would be that all oil companies, whether it is private sector or public sector, by an act, they ought to have one charging station, period. All new must have a given thing, in the sense that they will have to probably provide for more vehicles that can be charged, but existing one ought to have, if they have to remove one or two of their retailing pumps, they may do so. So some such very you see, radical measures will be required, and it is possible to do that. It's not that it's not possible to do that.
So yeah, So University of Southern California is at the forefront of doing research in the US on charging technologies. The professor there that heads the research, his name is Dr. Gad. He's a Gujarati. Brilliant guy. He's made a lot of recommendations to California highway system, by the way. They call the freeways there. It's the longest highway system in the US by state. They have the most number of highways in the state. So he was working on technologies that while your car is driving on the highway is automatically charging. It auto charges as it drives. It charges when it's parked somewhere. So all the parking spaces have this remote charging. And that's what Dr. Gad was working on. So anybody here that is interested, maybe should read up on some of that stuff, even approach him, because he had told me several times, if and when India is ready, I'd be willing to work with India and provide them all the research that I've done. Very, very nice guy. He's a lover of India, and he'd be willing to work with anybody that wants to work with him.
Just a small point to add to what he said, and what our BPCL's Chief General Manager said. You know, we are talking these days about green hydrogen. You would have been hearing a lot about hydrogen. Now, hydrogen per se, I mean, forget about the color of the hydrogen. I mean, yellow or orange, even at that, the particular price level, today in the heavy vehicles, buses and the trucks, today the cost of running those with hydrogen at the current prices of around 300 to 350 rupees a kg is cheaper than running them on diesel. Now, government is, they're very much conscious that cost of producing energy has to come down. Thanks to, to renewables, solar energy today is produced at the lowest possible cost. Now, India has got a very peculiar situation because we require decentralized and centralized solutions. So what you were talking about the rural areas is very appropriate from the angle of, introduction of the EVs. I mean, the fact that UP today is #1 goes to show that over there in the three-wheelers and the two-wheelers, there is a very high level of penetration. So I think, we can look at solutions which are going to be appropriate for rural areas where you don't require to travel long distances. Combining that with the renewable energy-based charging stations, you could have swappable batteries, or you could have, say many other maybe solutions, and this can become the probably turning point for the promotion of EVs in a very big way in the 2 and 3-wheelers, particularly in town, type 2, type 3, and say towns and the villages. So I think we have got a whole lot of opportunities for building business models which are not going to be needing any kind of a grant or subsidy from the government, because people will find that the cost of owning and running or cost of leasing a vehicle of this kind is going to be lower than the IC, while not sacrificing the convenience, because the consumer or all of us, for example, are living to have more conveniences. Convenience, luxury, comfort, this is the ultimate aim of everybody in life. So even the rural consumer will be looking to that, and this can be achieved by several interventions. I think we need to therefore look at the demand side, as you correctly pointed out, that are we looking at the consumer? And just a small point before I finish. Very recently, REC, Rural Electrification Corporation, as well as another CEW, they carried out, as a matter of fact, first time the demand of electricity in the rural areas, and they found two very interesting things: that there is not a need of 24/7 power everywhere. In the rural enterprises, power is needed or electricity is needed only for 8 to 10 hours. And at homes, electricity may not be needed during the day, but it is needed at the night for certain hours. So the demand study should also be done, which will give us many new business opportunities and business models. Thank you.
Sir, thank you for bringing up that point. I just wanted to respond to that. The Indian government is doing all it can to hasten the adoption of EV from the infrastructure standpoint. The three PSU oil companies have committed to install 22,000 fast chargers by March 2024. And we are fully aware, and it is all that investment is on our capex. And we are absolutely sure that till 2024, the utilization is not going to be more than 1%. But we are not looking at it at some cost. We are looking at it as somebody has to come forward to create that confidence in the minds of the Indian consumer that yes, EV is a viable and definitely a means to personal mobility or commercial mobility. So that confidence is something that all the three oil companies have taken, and you can see that happening. So you'll see it over the next couple of months. You will see the country dotted with EV charging stations. That's not going to be a problem at all. I mean, we have the network between the three oil companies. We have 80,000 fuel stations. So covering 30% is no problem, and money is not a problem. So so that's going to happen. The biggest issue today is, and that was what I was trying to touch upon, is grid power is not available. It is a nightmare to energize a charging station, and I'm sure there will be charge point operators. I'm sure Arpit would know. We are all in the same boat. It is next to impossible get that load. I mean, we have 15-20 kilowatt load available in our outlets, but that's not enough. So we need at least 50-60 kilowatt additional load, and it's next to impossible. So unless in India we come up with our own solution to generate power, and at least, I mean, if we are able to generate maybe about 30 kilowatt, you will be able to see yourself through for the next couple of, maybe next 5 years, because at the rate at which utilization is going to happen.
Yeah, I would like to, give one solution which we are implementing. We all are talking about the grid problems in rural and in other part of the world. See, like, we all know Leh, the most, the highest point in India. The grid itself is a big challenge there. So we are implementing there the largest integrated solution as a CPO, where the solar will be there for the generation, energy storage is there for the storing that whole energy for the daytime, and then the chargers are there, and then there are vehicles from Hyundai. So idea is every solution, or these kind of things are also, every day when we see these challenges, there are progress which are happening on ground. And again, as we all understand in India, the typical terrain is very different in every aspect across pan-India. So there is a solution of addressing grid issue. Besides that, definitely, looking at the connectivity in terms of HT-LT connection and creating that grid availability, definitely is a challenge. But in spite of the Ministry of Power policy framework and other regulations in the tariff side also, slowly, but yes, the system is getting geared up. We have built up our megawatt depots, and we know it took, as per our planning, say there is a 3-month planning, it took 6 months. But yes, we are able to secure that connectivity. But the most fundamental thing on the charging infrastructure, since we are touching on this topic, beside this local issue, what is the fundamental issue while investing into the charging infrastructure is 3 fundamental things. One, the kind of product which we see today, there is a very big fear in terms of technology obsolescence. As we have seen in the report, there is not much EV available. So nobody is sure what kind of EVs are going to come tomorrow, what standard they are going to adopt. So the investment which you put on the charging infrastructure or charging as a product, how they are going to have an interoperability. And in terms of the capacity of the charger, in terms of the standard of the charging operation. So all those things are also a big question. So we need to address first fundamental thing when we talk about the charging infrastructure investment is the technology obsolescence. And second thing, right now, most of the industry as in a segment, if we see, they all are trying to create, I will use the word like Tesla did for themselves, everything in-house. Okay. So if we do everything independently, how we will survive? Because in India, we have no scope for luxuries. We are the masses. So how interoperability can be supported among various EV segment, and within that particular segment, how each organization or the product can have that feasibility. And last but not the least, the utilization and the business model. How it is going to provide that utilization factor. Right now, the most of the infrastructure which are being deployed, if you have a captive infrastructure, charging infrastructure, I am running almost more than 6 depots today. It's 20% only the utilization over a huge investment which I have made. I'm making that too when I have a committed demand. So we have to be ready for next 3, 4, 5 years. The industry is evolving. The utilization percent, if we talk about the public charging, will be somewhere 5, 7, 8%. So those numbers in the single digit, how we can survive, what are the TCO way or what are the other revenue models which we can add along those charging infrastructure. So we have to think differently. You cannot just depend your whole investment only on the charging side. One need to think from a holistic view. If we are making an investment, what is the ROI, and then what are the multiple avenues of revenue? Charging will not give you that revenue only.
But I kind of disagree with you, because if you look at the telecom sector, the amount of infrastructure that they had to put, so it's cart before the horse, horse before the cart, right? The demand will never come if it has to wait for supply. It's just not going to happen. Supply has to eat the cost up front and say that I have to amortize this over a period, especially if you're in the infra game. That's cost of doing business. You have to factor that in, that for 4 years or 6 years is my carry cost. But the day India is a herd mindset culture. Once my bajuwala gets a auto rickshaw that is battery, then my whole neighborhood is going to get it. And that's when the demand better be there, because supply better be there, because the demand is going to be very hungry, right? The demand is not going to wait. So supply has to be there. But anyways, I think Mr. Dangaj, with you, and then I think Anupam, somebody from CII is going to moderate the questions that are coming, right? Online? I think yeah.
Yeah, so we referred about the telecom industry. So, we all have seen telecom industry, the maturity which we are seeing today, and that too on a continuous evolution from 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and various models, right? And that was, again, we have learned and we have adopted a global best and, available benchmarking. But, in last 10 years, 20 years, India also have grown up. The e-mobility is a subject area of the global market at par, more or less 2, 3, 4, 5 year gap only, right? So there is no such learnings available which we can say, we know this thing it work like this, only 1 + 1, 11 or 2. Nobody can define today. So it is a journey. It is a calculated risk and calculated way of taking your business model penetration. Suppose if I am going to the market today, I am a CPO. When I go to the market, I make my planning in such a way, learning again from telecom. At least I have to learn somewhere. Okay, I need to have an anchor customer who can give me a direction. Okay, at least I should know which land I should take, what power I should take, the capacity utilization, if not even a commitment. At least he give me some numbers. Okay, these many vehicles he's going to charge at me.
Arpi's report might help you out. You should read his report. I think he's got a lot of details there.
Yeah,
perfect. Thank you.
I'm from, I'm from oil and gas sector.
Yes.
And we studied this in detail, that how come in telecommunication it was so successful while it is not successful in gas sector. And our conclusion was that key intervention that government did in telecommunication sector, they allowed BSNL and MTNL assets to be utilized by private sector on a revenue sharing basis. Earlier it was not. When the policy was rolled out, that was not the case. Subsequently, when they did that, and when they did it, it got a big boost. What you were telling, that 24,000 petrol pumps will be, it is something akin to what they did it in the telecommunication sector. Assets which government has built with people's money is being utilized for this kind of, which they did it. GAIL and others, they did not do it for IOCL, and GAIL did not do it for gas transportation as much as they did it for the oil, for the telecom sector. Another thing, I hope CII or somebody must be taking note, and they must be approaching government or representing with the government on key policy initiatives that would be required. Like you see in CSR, 2% of the total net profit has to be spent on CSR. And there's some 7, 8, 10 buckets where it is allowed. I think anything and everything related to the expenses incurred or the investment made for charging should automatically be allowed under CSR.
That's a very good point. I think we can, Anupam, we can take that up to the government. At least start with the Gujarat government and then talk to the Deepak, right? And at the national level, that's a good recommendation.
That can help.
Because every company, every hotel, everybody will start doing it at that point, right?
Absolutely, because it is under CSR.
Yeah. So, Dangaj, you had something? You were saying something?
Just a small point that I want to make, my friend, that when you're putting up, these charging stations, why don't you think of mini power plants, in the sense that, mini, say, grids, which is again another priority, which will allow you multiple uses and utilization of the infrastructure that you've created. It could be, of course, used for charging, but it could be used for something else also. I mean, that's a point which you can maybe probably build into your thing.
Absolutely, sir. We are in fact, as we speak, we are trying to pilot a mini grid within the outlet. But I wish this had come as a package along with the charging ecosystem and not fragmented, because if they are not compatible, it makes it so much more difficult.
No, just maybe a small point that you can build a mini grid now with the renewable energy. See, solar is now today so ubiquitous that solar can take care of around 30-40% of the requirement, and the others can biomass gasification or biogas or something else, and you can put all of them together to have a mini grid, and that will have the multiple revenue sources for you. Thank you.
So can we take CII's questions first online, and then we can address the questions here in the room? We don't have much time left, so I would like to somebody online grab this 2 questions. What are they? Who are they for? मुझे ये नहीं पढ़ाई देगा बॉस, पढ़ना पड़ेगा किसी को.
So the question is, how long will India take to completely adopt to EV mobility, and why are the EV vehicles expensive now, and will the price come down in future when they are adopted?
Who wants to take that on the panel? I'm only a user, so I don't have any answers.
So the question is, how long India will take to completely adapt to EV mobility? Then why are EV vehicles expensive right now?
Do you want me to help you with the question, please? How long will India take to completely adapt to EV mobility?
So, I think people like us are the most affected party in that, because we are. I mean, as BPCL, we are investing about 600 crores in putting up the EV charging stations. But what we are also doing is, Mr. Singh sir is there, and we are coordinating with DHI for the government support. But what we are also doing is that we are proactively working with the auto OEMs to create demand. So creating heat maps. So we have signed up with MG. We are in talks with the other OEMs, both in the 4-wheeler and 2-wheeler. We are creating heat maps, and we are saying that wherever you want the infrastructure to be charging infrastructure to be set up, we will prioritize that. We were hoping that the cost of the battery is 60% of the of the vehicle. So we were hoping that the battery will come down to less than $100, but unfortunately it's back to it's about 150 now. In fact, it was coming down. Now it's gone up. It's gone up now. So I think the tipping point is the moment it comes around 110. I think.
Yeah, I think 70 at cell level and 100 pack level.
Yes. So if that happens, I mean, pre-COVID, I mean, it looked very, very doable in about 4-5 years. But I think now we are looking at maybe a 7-8 year horizon. We are delayed by about 2 years. Yes. But I think coming back to India, I think the trick is 2-wheelers, because that's where India moves on 2-wheelers, and that's where I think we have a very, very big opportunity to
India 2-wheelers definitely a very big opportunity. But sir, some segments, like for example, heavy vehicles and long distance vehicles will probably not move to EV. So 100% may not even happen in 2030. It may take even longer, or maybe never will happen, because some vehicle will be serviced by diesel, maybe kerosene, and so on, in the interest of emissions. On the other piece about when will the charging cost come down, pricing come down, there's also an angle of not just batteries, but semiconductors and presence of not having to import motors and motor controllers and all that in India. So that will also reduce the cost, and that's a economies of scale. So once all of that happens, then also the cost of the vehicle is going to come down. We have put some numbers in our report, but we are expecting the capex parity to happen in most segments in the next 3 to 4 years. 3 to 4 years, and this is without subsidy.
I think one encouraging announcement has been the Maruti Suzuki announcement
launching a vehicle.
Launching a vehicle. But I think
everyone is waiting for that to
everybody
happen.
is waiting for the Wagon-R EV to come
Wagon-R EV to
at
happen.
sub 10 lakhs. And I think that's going to,
That might
that's going to be
change.
a game changer.
Actually, yeah, as you rightly said, two-wheeler is where we should focus more. Four-wheeler will happen sooner or later anyway.
Well, Chetak is out there.
Yeah, Chetak is very much there, sir.
So that takes care of both the questions, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Anybody has questions here? Yeah, somebody can get a mic. Yeah.
Hi everyone, Arjit here from My Bike Ahmedabad. A brief background, we are India's largest public bike share with about 10,000 bicycles across 8 cities. Now my question to all the panelists and everyone here is, what is this obsession about electric cars? I mean, is the problem statement about solving pollution or is it about also solving parking, traffic and congestion? Is the problem statement about moving people or is the problem statement about moving cars? कहीं ऐसा ना हो जाए कि हम इतनी एनर्जी रिसोर्सेज और स्टार्टअप्स का कॉन्फिडेंस और एफर्ट डाल दें उस प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट को सॉल्व करने में और 10 साल बाद हम ट्रैफिक में खड़े और बोले अरे इसके बारे में तो हमने सोचा ही नहीं. So I think two-wheelers are working great because they are very close to people's expectations, right? I mean, we have Ashish here from Bounce. They have a 90,000 rupee scooter that is competing with the likes of Activa. The problem statement is solved. It's very close to being solved. Do we really need to spend our energies in terms of solving the problem statement for cars, creating charging stations, creating roads, this, that? I mean, do we really want to spend so much energy and resources towards cars? Why not just solve two-wheelers and public transport and let cars run on ICE, and at the right time when the technology has evolved, we focus on cars? Thank you.
So good point from your perspective. I get it, right? But like if you're Narendra Modi, you have other levers that you're dealing with. If you're a head of state of any country, right? You have other things that are going on. And we are one of the largest democratic consumer base in the world. We matter, right? So everything that we consume progressively will become a larger spending economy. Our GDP is going up, our spend is going up globally. People are looking at us as a consumer base, everything, right? So, and all of you know where oil and gas stands. It's a very, very, very touchy issue globally. Water, religion, oil and gas. These three things make and divide people, humans, countries, everything. Right? So you can't disown water. You can't disown religion. But you have an opportunity to disown oil and gas. So, I mean, like I said, from your vantage point, makes great sense. But or innings khila rahi hai side pe. There's other one-day matches going on. Yeah. But anybody else wants to add? Please do. Yeah. Is it speed? Well, no. Look, at the end of the day, the whole world is pushing for it for environmental purposes. You guys don't realize today, the largest water body in the US is 2 lakes in the US, right? Lake Mead. They are finding dead bodies. People from Las Vegas, they were killed and they were thrown in there. Now the dam's drying up and they're finding dead bodies, motorcycles, cars. This is all global warming. It's all tied in. It's all got to do with us being conscious. Ice packs around the world are melting. This is all the effect of us doing it. This human created emergency. And there are people shouting, but a lot of us are not listening. Right? My wife used to yell at me because I used to own a Hummer. The average it gave you was 6 miles per gallon. 3.6 liters takes you 10 kilometers. I used to love it. I didn't care. I used to tell her, my one car is not screwing up Iceland. But everybody's one car is screwing up Iceland. So we have to be conscious, right? And that's why I bought 2 electric. I'm not happy with them at all. I love my ICE car. It's also a very nice car. But eventually we all have to go there. We have to accept it. There is a problem.
What is the charging time, Parag, for your Porsche from here, this side?
Oh,
yeah. So what
charging
is the charging
time?
time for your Porsche Taycan or Tesla?
Yeah, I have a super fast charger, and I go from 0 to 80 in 40 minutes.
And Porsche Taycan?
40 minutes, 0 to 80.
Okay.
And 100%, normally they tell you not to charge your battery, but if I go about 48 minutes, 47, 48 minutes.
Right.
Upper battery charge is much faster. So I can go to 100% in about 48 minutes.
Right, but it's capable of charging in 20 minutes, 80%
Yeah.
Porsche Taycan. Yeah.
About 50 minutes, I can get a full charge.
And
but they have super chargers at the dealerships.
Right.
In about 24 minutes, they get you to 80%. But I don't have that power in my house.
Right.
So from a residential power, I have the highest charger.
And do you know how much time it takes for Indian electric car or buses to get charged?
No.
It's 150 minutes or probably 3 hours, even with fast chargers.
Yeah.
So,
but there's a power equation, right? I mean, if you had that sort of power.
No, it's not the power. It's the product is not at par with the global companies, as Arpit was mentioning in the beginning. And I have a question for Anupam sir as well. Anupam sir, you told that you want to focus on two-wheeler for the evangelize event. So 50% of the fuel, petroleum products consumed in transportation are consumed by bus trucks. So why to limit evangelize view on two-wheeler? And we should make it more broader and probably complete all the form factors of the EV should go electric by 2030 or at max 2035. So that should be the broader vision of the evangelization.
I hope you remember I am the guy who says focus, 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 and focus. So if you try to do everything, you'll end up doing nothing. That's the first point. Second is 2 and 3 wheelers is a very, very large market, and your probability of creating a technology that actually gets adopted by commercial vehicles and sold is very high. Whereas in 4-wheelers and multi-axle large vehicles, so trucks and buses, it's a no-brainer. They've proven to be more financially sustainable than petrol and diesel. An electric bus is cheaper to run and own and more profitable than a diesel one. So I know what you're saying, but for innovators,
right,
to start selling to a large manufacturer, OEM is going to be a bit of a challenge, and therefore the focus on 2 and 3. Right. And it's a very, very large market.
As an entrepreneur, I'm going to put my entrepreneur hat on, right? The market in India for a 1 rupee product is much larger than a 1,000 rupee product. Doesn't mean that you should not be in either of the games, right? But if you are an entrepreneur that really wants to reduce your chances of failure, it's better that you play the 1 rupee game and not the 1,000 rupee game. Doesn't mean you shouldn't or can't, but stack the odds in your favor. Right. And the odds are in your favor when your lowest common denominator is a very large number.
Right. And Arpit was mentioning about the heavy vehicles will find it difficult to go electric. So Arpit, but as Anupam also mentioned that there is a very good TCO benefit. Like Mumbai-Pune bus, previously it was Volvo, and now they are electric bus from Electra BYD, I think. And the economics is fabulous. They are running 800 kilometers a day, and they maybe return on capital employed will be 100 or 200% year on year. So they will go electric, and it's just that the infra piece needs to kick in, and the batteries needs to be fast charged like Taycan, Porsche Taycan in 20 minutes for that commercial vehicle adoption to happen. And Mr. Sudhanshu was saying on the grid side that power from the supply side also we have an issue. I have been in the power industry for 2-3 years, and India technically is a power surplus nation, but because of the inefficiencies in the last mile distribution, we are facing all those issues. And India is already 100 gigawatt renewable. We plan to invest 400 gigawatt renewable by 2030, additional total 500 gigawatt. So grid are also becoming cleaner. We are a power surplus nation technically. Our peak load is 200 gigawatt and we have an installed base of 400 gigawatt. So it's just the last mile distribution. And like you were also mentioning, sir, that you are finding it difficult for the extra load, but it's always oversized. Like transformers are always oversized by 2x. So it might be some location problem, or they have to invest in the last mile transformers and all. But technically, sir, all the interstate cables are 2x, 3x the capacities when they are planned in. So it's just the utilization thing. And the electricity will also be very cheaper, like 15 to 20 rupees at charging station, because the infra cost is 2 rupees per unit. So 7 plus 2 plus 2 rupees profit. So 15 rupees should be the average selling price in the long run when the market matures. So India should be all electric before 2035. I'm talking about the new vehicle sales, and the car park, which is 10x the sales volume, will take some time.
You are more ambitious than I am, and I hope you are right and I'm wrong. Any other questions?
We have 1100 startups, so I think we all have to be cohesive.
Absolutely.
And it will happen.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
I would like to answer his one question on the bus side.
Absolutely, absolutely. Go ahead.
There is no technology and there is a huge time to charge. So I don't know the name of the person who was just speaking, but just to answer this,
He said Akash Gupta.
Okay, so Akash, just to give you a very good understanding, in India we are fully charging the bus in close to an hour's time. Okay, again the innovation being done in India, we were being asked to give a battery sizing which can cover a autonomy of more than 120 kilometer a day, and then how we have done that, no one again done in global market. In India we created a 2 inlet in our bus rather than 1 inlet. We use both the gun to charge the bus in the parallel way, and that is how the higher the battery sizing we did, a proper capacity of the charger which we have taken, and then we have optimized the timing. In the public transportation, the most and important critical factor is the charging time, because the vehicles are meant to be running on the road, not in the charging station or being there at the depot. 18 hours they are running on the road, and I'm managing that operation. So please understand, this whole things which are kind of a requirement from the STU, one way it is a right perception, they are considering electrification at par with the way they are running the routes and the buses, the way they are running the diesel and CNG buses. They are not upgrading in terms of thought process ki there will be a change, there will be a pattern change, there will be operational change. So that is where a more challenge on us to plan in such a way, whatever planning we have to do, which is a very, very important part when we talk about the execution. Okay, what are the various parameters which are going to impact my overall charging operation? Whether is the route length, whether is the charging time, and then whether it will be overall night charging or I have the window during the daytime also, which is a very, very critical factor in terms of extra running the kilometer in a daytime. So in public transportation, just to add, from a technology side, things are improved a lot, and we are almost touch close to 1 hour for the charging. And even there are now technology which we also as a company 3 years back even we bring on ground, that pantograph which can charge the battery, the bus complete in close to 5 to 7 minutes. But again, because of bit of commercial kind of regions, we have not implemented yet, but there are technology which can charge the complete bus for running miles and miles, whatever way we can build that capacity, which are already operational in Europe also. Of course, for our coaches in terms of intercity planning, this will be a kind of a technology insertion which we are going to take up as our roadmap. So things as a technology, as a charging infrastructure, and then important word is solutioning. If we should know from our market, from our demand perspective, what we need to do. You don't have any mathematical formula of copy paste. We have to do kind of our own R&D in terms of solution engineering, what best fit for our market to deliver on ground. So this is, I believe, it will be good for you to know, so that that thinking in terms of 3 hours charging time or 4 hour or 5 hour, it is all lies in the planning part of it. And in terms of adaptation, we are definitely in, yes, two-wheeler is a game changer, but along with two-wheeler, the city adaptation for the electric buses are taking a much bigger leap. Of course, it started with the government FAME to sport and all those things, but now the experience which we are having on this year onward is the employee transportation, the airport electrification of the buses, a very school buses, a very different segments are coming up where there is no subsidy. It is all about how you are bringing that parity on a TCO model to operate that thing. So that is how where we need to see when we plan both for infrastructure, both for vehicle, in terms of capacity utilization, in terms of overall operation management. So things are a bit positive. So we should be look ahead in a more progressive way. Nothing to be pessimistic about it. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Just to respond, if I can add, actually in India, most of these four-wheelers, they're on 1C charging cycle. So, so that's why, I mean, it's a fine, you have to find balance between cost and output. So, so that's why, a Nexon can only take 80%, and that's 24 kilowatt is what it can charge in an hour, as opposed to a Porsche, which is actually at 3C, at 2C or 3C actually. But it's all about cost, and it's all about economics actually. So, but in India, like we see, if you give an opportunity and convenience to the customer, they do top-up charging. When we've installed these chargers on the on highway corridors at 100 kilometers from each other, 50 to 20 minutes charge on a Nexon or a MG ZS EV is good enough to take him to for another 100 kilometers. Indian driving habits, 120 kilometers, people take a break.
Right.
So there's no problem. 20 minute break for a top-up charge is okay. So our experience has been that for the cost for the price that he is paying and for the time that he is spending, as of today, the consumer is fine.
Right.
Otherwise, the four-wheelers, both the Nexons, I mean the Tata Tigor Nexon and the very absolutely superior top-class vehicles by Indian consumer expectations.
Right. Sir, but long term, if you want to see that 2% going to 100%, you have to solve for the entire convenience piece.
And that'll happen. That'll organically happen, right? As the ecosystem evolves, the demand pushes supply to a lot of degree. It's when people want it, manufacturers are going to make it.
Right.
The want has to exist.
Right.
Right. And that's what business is all about. But Anupam, I think we're already half an hour over.
Yeah, you can take those further questions over tea.
Right.
You can start with your thank yous, I guess. Close it off.
Well, it's been really a wonderful day. And I must thank all the panelists who've come, attended from across the country, and you all have traveled over to Ahmedabad, especially for this day. So thank you so very much. Thank you for the audience, our directors, our board, our founders, and all the startups who are here. Truly, I mean, more than anything else, it's the quality of discussions that we've had, from the insights that the minister himself pulled out from amongst us, to the comments and the kind of discussion that we've had, and some of the very thought-provoking comments that you made in the middle, Parag. And those are the kind of thoughts that we really need to keep with us as we think of solutions. It's not our conviction that I can work with this technology, I can create this solution. It is this kind of thoughts when they are in our mind, and then when we sit and create solutions, they become so much more powerful and transformative. And after this discussion today, I guess I feel a little bit more comforted that we are truly on our way to converting ourselves into an electric transportation nation in a shorter period of time. So, well, wish us all good luck for Evangelize 2.0, and I hope that we get a lot of bright minds coming like we had last year. And thank you all so very, very much. There are small mementos to. Thanks. And if you have copies of the practice, we'd like to give out some. Sure. Gentlemen on the panel, you can now log off. Thank you so very much. I'm sorry we couldn't give you the mementos. Your contribution was definitely very invaluable, and so please, yes, this is over, and thanks for joining us. Thank you so much.